sent to you. Okay. Trip to New York. End of the school year. Easter.
Just in case you need to see the other cues.
I'm sorry. Well, I mean, they are take over and build you know, so that in itself.
I can email you the picture.
You're welcome, and it's one that's and according to that's it, and that's it, sign in.
Why don't you just say that?
When it looks like. Bernard? Last time
Or say Ed? No.
at this point.
That's what I was going to suggest. Yeah.
Recording in progress.
Yep. Well, and the first time out, the board had the option to call for referendum rules if they wanted. So. Could we please take our seats? It's 2 minutes after 7. Those would be, I've already got that down as a roll call. I'll call this meeting to order. Roll call by the county clerk. And I would like to mention this to those that are on Zoom. We had a good suggestion from Supervisor Morris at our last meeting that we announce this ahead of time. When we have a roll call, please unmute yourselves and then remute yourselves after the roll call.
We have 30 present and 0 absent.
Okay, we'll have a Pledge of Allegiance. Supervisor Payne.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's take a moment of silence and think about how fragile democracy can be in this world and how important it is to us, and think about people engulfed in a war in Europe and be with them. Thank you. Let's have our seats. Compliance with open meetings law.
We are in compliance, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda. So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any moves or changes anybody wants to make? Otherwise, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. It's approved. Approval of the February 8th, 2022 minutes. Supervisor Renard.
I move approval of the minutes as presented.
Any additions, subtractions? Otherwise, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. The minutes are approved. Communications.
You should have the treasurer's report on your desk on mint green paper, and then the zoning committee notice of public hearing will take place this Thursday right here in this room at 7 p.m.
Thank you. Any public comment tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on to special order of business. A resolution in memory of Patrick J. Theater, our former coroner. Who's presenting that?
Resolution number
54.
2154, Memoriam of Patrick Pat J. Theater. Whereas Patrick Pat J. Theater of Watertown was born on August 20th, 1945, and passed away on February 1st, 2022. And whereas Pat started serving the people of Jefferson County as a firefighter EMT, starting with the Watertown Fire Department in 1967. He was promoted to lieutenant in 1978 and then promoted to captain in 1995. And whereas after his retirement in 1998, Pat was elected to serve as the Jefferson County coroner and continued to serve Jefferson County as coroner for 18 years. And whereas Pat was known for his dedication and commitment to serving the people of Jefferson County, as well as his unique sense of humor, and whereas it is fitting for Pat Theater to be recognized by the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors for his public service, dedication, and thoughtfulness, which will be missed by many. Now, therefore, be resolved that the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors meeting this 8th day of March 2022 does hereby extend its sincere sympathy to the family of Pat Theater, along with this recognition of his service and dedication to the citizens of Jefferson County.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor of this resolution, say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none. Everybody that didn't know Pat, that was the one annual report everybody looked forward to hearing. And it was never morbid. Okay. Item B under special order of business, proclamation proclaiming the week of April 10th, 2022 as Fair Housing Week. And do I have a presenter for that?
Proclamation 2021-4, proclaiming the week of April 10th, 2022 as Fair Housing Week. Whereas it is important to reaffirm the commitment of Jefferson County regarding a person's right to buy, sell, rent, or otherwise secure housing in Jefferson County without regard to sex, race, religion, marital status, age, national origin, income, or financial status, in conformance with the Wisconsin Fair Housing Law in Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, also known as the Federal Fair Housing Law. And whereas fair housing concerns occurs when people have the wide range of housing choices based on their incomes and needs, regardless of race, color, sex, sexual orientation, religion, national origin, ancestry, age, marital status, lawful sources of income, disability, family status, or status as a victim of domestic abuse, sexual abuse, or stalking. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors that the week of April 10th, 2022 shall be Fair Housing Week in Jefferson County, commending all those who have prevailed in their struggle for fair housing and wishing success in breaking the barriers for all who will continue to struggle for fair housing.
I have a motion to approve this proclamation. Supervisor Jones, do I have a second? Supervisor Morris? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed, hearing none. The proclamation is approved. Third item under special order of business, presentation of the 22 budget amendment update. Mr. Waymeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For those in the audience tonight, you do have a handout at your table with the slides so you can kind of make notes. You'll see in a couple spots I did make page annotations that reference the document tonight for the board agenda, so you can reference back to a couple pages that will cite for some of the agenda items tonight. So this year is a little bit different for our what's typically called our carryover process, especially for new board members. We usually look at how we close out the previous fiscal year and look at projects and other expenses that carry forward to and officially amend the upcoming budget, or 2022 budget in this case. This year is a little bit different because of how we ended, how we look ahead, And it was a little more formal because we also look at some staffing changes as a result. So last Wednesday, we actually had a combined joint meeting of the Executive, Finance, and HR Committee that are going to hear a very similar presentation that was given last week to kind of provide an overview, more attuned to what we do for a regular budget process versus just saying, here's a whole bunch of line items, please carry those forward or approve them kind of scenario. And so we thought it was important to kind of tell the story, not only in terms of how you understand what's going on for 2022, but there's a couple agenda items tonight, action steps that have relevancy of how they play together tonight. And so we'll begin to talk a little bit about the stories of the 2020 financial results. We have roughly 13,000 line items or accounts that the finance department manage. I do promise we will not go through every 13,000 line item tonight. I'll hit the key variances that we have to help explain the financial picture that we're at, which is positive, and how it gets to the story of how do we look at how we look ahead towards the future. We're going to briefly look at our fund balance. That is unaudited for our CPAs in the room, but is a pretty good indicator of where we're at today. And then we're going to start getting into what we're recommending, and that has been recommended by those three committees of looking ahead to those carryover staffing changes, some amendments to our highway plan, also looking at adjustments to American Rescue Plan Act, and a little bit how the opioid settlements plays into this as well. So our financial results. So when we look at this page, it's kind of the ins and outs and surpluses or deficits. And the thing that is positive here for the most part is you see surpluses. Across the board, with the exception of some small areas, we saw revenues better than projected in most cases, and we saw expenditures underneath budget in many cases as well. Those pictures put us in a positive fiscal picture as we look ahead to the future of Jefferson County. Specifically, as we look by revenue sources, you will see that we had just under about $4 million delta of what we budgeted. Close to about $81 million, almost $82 million was what we planned. We approached $85.1 million. And we're going to talk through some of those key areas of where those variances took place to kind of show what we think is sustainable in some areas that we may need to say they might not be so sustainable and consider more of a one-time revenue approach to how we manage our fiscal approach. So sales tax. When we put this budget together, it was 2020. And no one knew where the world of 2020 was going to take us when it comes to sales tax, so we were very conservative with that number. Our number for the 2021 budget, 2022 budget, is actually about $7.3 million. And as you can see, we ended 2021 up at about $7.9 million. Our December sales tax actually had the highest month we've ever received in sales tax, almost $800,000 in December. But the question is that sustainable? I think there's many indicators that will show it's yes, but in the last week, your opinion might have changed. When we went from $2 a gallon gas to $4 overnight. And what does that do to family budgets? What does that do to disposable income? And how does that drive a lot of those sales tax as a result? So we're going to continue to monitor that. We feel pretty comfortable roughly being around that $7.3 million range. We'll continue to have that conversation with the Finance Committee where it looks at the summer as we see more data coming in with some of the price changes that we're starting to see. We also have what's called tax increment finance dissolution. So for those who don't know, a quick thing is we have communities that develop tax increment financing districts among all our cities. And this is an economic development tool that we are part of as a joint review board. When those areas dissolve, they may have some additional funds that then are distributed back out to the other tax bodies, and we're one of those. And so we had 3 that dissolved this year, 2 in Johnson Creek and 1 down in Whitewater, which will be added to the net new value of Jefferson County. About $93,000 went back to Jefferson County. By a conversation with Finance Committee previous, we looked at some of that money going to economic development, and we'll talk through how that's going to be used later on. Transfer fees. This is primarily in the Register of Deeds office. And if you've noticed those lovely, nice low interest rates last year, there was a lot of refinancing going on. And what that means is then we had some of these transfer fees and sales of homes, et cetera, going on. So they very easily exceeded the budget that we looked at. You will see where we're recommending some of those extra fees going to help that office moving forward. Interest on delinquent taxes, a little bit higher than we projected. That is the one that we continue to like to see down. That's that 12% that we charge when people aren't keeping up to date on taxes. So we've been looking at that number and keep going down because that means people are able to afford to pay for their taxes. And then some intergovernmental payments. Some of this is in and out for human services. And then ARPA. We have received about $8.2 million of our ARPA funds. but because of how accounting works, you don't show it until you actually spend it or recognize it in the CPA world. And so we actually had budgeted about $508,000 last year, and we actually showed use of about $903,000. So it was a little bit higher than budgeted. And then finally, a couple last other revenue changes. County ordinances. Paul and his team was out there strong, reinforcing those laws, but we did have some good grants to help look at seatbelts and stuff, so that was slightly above budget and keeping us in line where we need to go. We also had some public charges. Mark could come up here and talk about all the ins and outs of dental insurance, but we won't do that to you all tonight. Charges for land records, again, that kind of coincides with what we saw going on in the Register of Deeds office. Those are parallel kind of revenue streams that take place. That funds some of our technology and land information and also Register of Deeds. So that is a great number that we see going forward. And then finally, reserve seating, that's Fair Park. We had a great year in terms of how that act turned out, above budget by about $130,000. And as Mark likes to note, finance committee last week, this is the first year the whole operation was off the levy, both for the Fair Park and Fair Week itself. So that's a positive thing in the direction we're heading there. And then intergovernmental charges. Highway continued to do a lot of things. One, they did almost $1 million in projects to communities beyond county, so there's some revenue streams coming in. The other thing is, if you looked at the South Campus, the Health and Human Services campus, they took care of resurfacing our parking lots out there, plus rebuilding Annex Road. So if you go down there now, you don't bump up and down all over that road. So it's a beautiful road now. But we charged back for that project with through charges for $322. As a side note, I think based on initial engineers' estimates, if we went out, that was approaching at least a $500,000 project. So that was a nice savings back to Jefferson County for them doing the work for us. Then we look at the expenditures. And so we were looking at close to a $94 million budget. Some of that was carryover from the previous year, so that's why those numbers don't always line up, and some other factors. And we actually came in roughly about almost $80.1 million. So a nice reduction of what we're looking at spending. A couple key things that you'll see tonight is several capital projects that were put together that we saved for this year will be executed in this upcoming budget cycle. So you'll see within the carryover requests from departments that have been approved that you'll see some of those projects moving forward. Of note, you'll see the jail operating system for the Sheriff's Department as an example. We've been doing a lot of work on flood mitigation properties. We had over $2 million in grants last year that were executed, and that was a component of some of that that's carried over. And then MIS equipment were some examples of that. We also looked at some other capital parks as a specific highlight. We are having issues with trucks. That's not just cars, but trucks, and a couple of the trucks, Bill will tell you when he's trying to order them for across the county, he just stopped taking orders. And so one of them that was a sidelight with that was one of the parks trucks that we are carrying it over until that's ready to be executed. Also tonight, you will see some great quotes that we got for the interurban to move forward. And so that was carried forward with grants and other proceeds. And upon approval, we'll get blacktop in from Watertown to County Highway up this year. That project came under budget, and so we were able to execute a lot more on that going forward. And then finally, some other expenditures that were carried over, operating expenditures, and some of this is just normal carryovers that take place, in some cases restricted funds. Contingency, we're starting close to $4 million, and you see some things that we think recommending to the county we should be doing those contingency funds moving forward. And then a couple purchase service lapse back to general fund. And finally, one of the bigger ones is actually doing with wages and benefits. And we're going to talk about this a little bit tonight. And obviously, I think most of you realize we're in an environment for hiring is very tough right now. And keeping staff is very tough right now. And so that $3.2 million variant is for open positions as we try to hire and recruit and retain. And so things we'll talk about tonight that you'll see in the budget, we'll talk about a position specifically focused on recruitment and retention of staff. You'll see some things related to looking at market analysis, potentially looking at sign-on bonuses or recruitment and referral bonuses and things like that to help us build up staff. And you also see a reserve related to health insurance because of the cost that we're looking at health insurance, so we can keep competitive with both us as an employer and for the employees as a benefit package moving forward to help with that number. So part of our also process is to finalize any deficits that had to take place to true up budgets from 2021. This is found on page 28 of the resolution for tonight of your agenda. Mark and I talked about this earlier tonight. I'm kind of proud of this sheet because you don't see a lot of huge variances. I think when I first started, some of you have been here a while, that was usually 7 figures in many cases. And so I think the team and the board working together has really worked on what this looks like for the end. And there's pretty good explanations for most of this. So, or there is explanation, not pretty good. For the county clerk, going in from 2020 to 2021, they were given a grant from the state to help with security, cybersecurity kind of scenarios. And so working with Don's team in MIS, they did purchase a product, but the way it was budgeted was a carryover ongoing service cost, and some of that carryover was missed going into 2021 budget. So that's where that number came from. For district attorneys, one, we had an insurance change from a single plan to a family plan, which changes that numbers a little bit. And then we also had in the computer programs, we had some steps that were properly uploaded to Munis. And so that was part of that delta. And then library system went over by $880 for administration expenses. So all in all, when you play that down in the 13 line items, not too bad. And so that'll be part of the resolution tonight on item 12B. And then finally, the fund balance policy. I know this is very small read, and we'll get you a better application on it. But all in all, we continue to see increases in our fund balance. And the bottom line is going into 2023 budget planning, we have about $813,000 in net available that will help us fund capital projects on the 2023 budget cycle. Mark, what was our number? What was our budget for fund balance? Do you know off the top of your head at the end of 2021? I mean 2020.
I think 400,000. Right in the middle there, it's 486,000.
Okay, so it went up by about 486,000. So keep moving that up. So that takes us to what we're recommending in the budget amendments for tonight and carryover process. Again, as you go through the page, it has all the items. You're going to talk through each of those lines and what changes have been made. So there's 3 focus points that we're going to talk about tonight that we looked at as a carryover budget. So one of the first things you can see is a return. And a return back to the taxpayers related to us recommending to advance refunding a bond for the highway shop. And we'll talk through what that looks like. Investment in capital. You're going to see several areas of capital that we're looking at investment in. One is reserving additional funds for the courthouse, jail, sheriff, so we can use cash payments versus some of the other financing mechanisms. We're going to be updating and accelerating certain road projects as part of this process. Small capital projects and purchases throughout the various departments. Keep building on our fleet management program. You'll see another $500,000 reserved for that. For those who, as a reminder, our fleet management program, we changed what that looks like about 2 years ago. Bill, Mark, Ryan, and a few other folks across the county changed it to an operational budget kind of scenario. So we don't have to have these blips in capital purchases going forward, and we return money back. This program is actually making money this year. It follows the example of the highway shop in terms of their larger trucks with the depreciation account we set up. And as we sell those vehicles, that creates our capital replacement program. So once this program is fully operational, we're going to have very limited capital cost related to vehicles coming back to the county. So I think we've had some pretty good success in there. And we're looking at that next phase, specifically related to some law enforcement and some other items going ahead. And then finally, interurban. You'll be talking about the first 2 phases tonight to finish the construction on that, but we're also planning ahead to phase 3 as part of this proposed budget amendment. We talked a little bit already about how do we become the employer of choice and those tools in place we need to continue to compete for employees, but also prepare a fair wage for our employees to be competitive. So we'll be talking about recruitment and retention, specifically a position focused in on that. We are going to be recommending using American Rescue Plan Act dollars for that, recognizing that will end. We'll continue to do analysis how this position helps us. 3 years from now, this market could be totally different. But we'll continue to work with the board of what that position might be in the future if we continue to need it. We believe, though, we need to be more aggressive to go ahead to help recruit employees. You're going to see several resources being asked for in terms of staff, especially in human services, but also some reallocation of staff as we look at how we emerge as an organization. And finally, I already talked about some of the market condition and benefits related to being an employer. And I think the other thing I want to highlight as I go through some of these items, we're following the plans in many cases that have been put together. We're looking at the comprehensive plan. We're looking at the strategic plan. We're looking at the outdoor recreation plan, a whole bunch of other plans that this board has worked through with staff to help create the guiding principles. And that really was a bedrock as we look at this going ahead of helping form these ideas. So as you start going through that page, it has all the red lines on it. I'm going to kind of just go through that briefly. I'm going to just hit some highlights. So this is on page 17 of your packet. So the first thing you'll see right up front is that we're recommending to pay off the Series 2013A bond 10 years early. It is eligible to be called after April 1st of 2023. The principal due at that point in time is just over $2 million. So we are recommending doing that versus not issuing debt for the courthouse project, mainly because as we look at the last 10 years of that bond is some of the highest interest rates of all the bonds that we have out here. Specifically, it goes to 3.5% and 4%. So our recommendation is we pay that off early, achieve that savings from those highest interest rates, which is approximately $436,000, and move forward with lower interest rates if we have to issue additional debt. So we think that's a prudent fiscal move to move forward. Right now, our mill rate is 0.44 is what we projected. Our actual for this year for debt was 0.4369. As the projections go forward with the financial model for the courthouse project, that is basically the cap that we'll see. So we anticipate that staying there and begin to start moving down as we go forward. Paying off this debt will have an impact of that mill rate going into 2024. So everyone's clear on that. We're also recommending that we reserve $2.635 million for the courthouse jail sheriff project. Focus on 4 key areas, specifically furniture. We had a budget set aside for that. We're recommending using cash for that. Technology. And then also we talked a lot about the parking lot out front with storm sewer and a small storage building across the way. That was, if you recall the budget presentations, those were in there, but not in the bond payment. So this is the cash to help pay for that. We're also recommending reserving $750,000 for phase 3 of the interurban. This would take us from County Highway F to Oconomowoc. We have engaged and have more accelerated engagement and conversations with the city of Oconomowoc and Waukesha County. Tonight, as you see the feasibility study, Oconomowoc Rotary has actually donated funds that will help the feasibility study for that phase. So this will give us the seed money, especially as we begin to look at infrastructure grants to move that forward. We think this will be important to get that project done and complete. This has been on the horizon, I think, when Kevin and I looked, I think before I was even born. So it's exciting that a community spirit has really helped build this, and we're going to get to the point this could get done with what's going on tonight in the bids, but also reserving funds to move forward with our partners in Waukesha County and City of Oconomowoc. The retention, recruitment, and market adjustments, that's $500,000. Again, that's focused on various positions, but it's also focused on some recruiting strategies and retention strategies. Example you see in human services. One of our best recruiting methodologies are our employees. Talking about the workplace, talking about the good things that go on here, and looking at a referral program. So there's going to be a litany of ideas coming from that, but that's some seed money to help pay for some of those ideas. Same with health insurance. We're expecting some decent increases, so we want to soften that blow as that looks ahead as an employer, as that cost raise going forward. Ongoing organizational projects, and then our revolving loan fund, as Basin pays back, that's where some of those additional funds are coming into. And then you may recall we're talking about tree loft property. We got County Highway A. That's been in there since we purchased a right-of-way for the realignment of County Highway A, and as funds potentially for the remnant parcel that is out there, plus that's continuing to be carried over. As a side note, one thing that is in our mind as we talk to the Finance Committee is ongoing review of our working capital. One thing specifically, cybersecurity, as we look at what does that look like for almost like a self-insurance model here for the county, as insurance is getting tougher to get. And so that's something we'll be talking about in future years. Jumping ahead to page 17, 18, the next key parts of the department in admin. And this was officially a go-ahead blessing yesterday. Working with the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, our friends at the Greater Watertown Health Foundation, we developed a consulting role for housing grants to help our communities. Our portion that was used in contingency that was approved by Finance Director was $17,500. This just shows the carryover of that. One thing I'll mention, you're going to see Greater Watertown Health Foundation in a few spots tonight. Just want to highlight, we continue to have great partners and nonprofits in our businesses and other local government entities, and just an example of what they do. Clerk Courts, you're going to see some lump sums really focus on some of their professional contracts. They got some projects they get caught up on scanning, looking at some of the delayed jury trials, and some carryover project costs related to delays in court system. So you'll see some lump sum, and that'll give the Clerk of Court some ability to flex that around as those costs come in. Central service, we already kind of talked about this, but really we have to upgrade our jail door operating system. I kind of had some jokes with the committee last week on this, but it's in need of repair, and that's why we set aside money. We need to add a little bit more to it, and we'll be looking at jail assessment funds to help cover that, but right now we're showing carryover costs for that as part of our project. I mentioned JCEDC using some of the TID dollars. We're in the midst of looking at that organizational strategic plan. We're not going to be partnering with Dodge County more. That email was sent out earlier this year, and really focus on what does that organization look like to support our communities and our businesses. Emergency management, the flood mitigation, we talked through that already. Fair Park, you see a variety of small projects. Finance assessment, we'll continue to bring more things online to manage our facilities, our vehicles, and this is part of what we have been planning for, to reallocate those funds. HR, we got a few products out there to include updating our personnel ordinances. We started that before COVID. Obviously, a few things slowed us down, but we need to bring those back up. Again, that becomes a modernization of our policies. Again, when we talk about recruitment and retention, policies are also key in that effort to modernize those as well. We are in the midst of prepping for labor negotiations with the Sheriff's Department as their contract ends this year. Parks, you see a whole lot of great things in there. One thing just to note, you'll also see a lot of restricted accounts in there. That is because of some great gifts. We just had a meeting with, 40 community members talking about the future of parks and looking at ideas for the future. A couple of those restricted accounts are from donations and fundraisers from folks in the community towards the parks. Register D is a back indexing. That's where we're showing those extra funds over the budget amount going. We're trying to get more of our records online, specifically, especially as we look at the building project, so folks have more access to records. As a side note, when people access those records, they pay to see those records, so there's a level of revenue source that goes with that too. But this helps for the convenience of looking at records. Sheriff Department, this will be hopefully the last year you'll see the communications project is carryover. By this summer, we expect to fully be conditionally accepting that project as they do the drive test, and we're almost complete with where that's heading. Some of these dollars is we did request a 10-year maintenance contract in advance of that bid, and so that's part of what we're carrying for that contract to get the efficiencies of that 10-year contract up front. We have medical reserve in the jail. A good thing is we haven't fully tapped into it yet, but that's for those who do not know. When we have prisoners in our jail, we have full responsibility of all medical costs. And so in some cases, there are items like hospitalization in certain pharmacies when they leave our premise that we have to cover. And this is just a fail-safe in case those costs get too high for the Sheriff's Department. And then in fleet monitors, UW extension flooring projects, and then fleet modernization. And then finally, the big one you'll see is human services. We'll talk through quickly some of their staff positions. We have increased what we call their first fund balance from $650,000 to $1 million. What this is really focused on is a couple primary issues, specifically hospitalizations and out-of-state placements. I think those who have been around understand the cost of some of these placements. It can be $25,000 to $30,000 a month. And so what we want to put in there is a buffer in case we have too many of those to protect the county from having to come back to the main contingency going forward. So that's what that is for. A lot of training was reduced going into 2022 budget to meet the levy cap, and so we're restoring some of the training items they had in there, and then a variety of smaller capital projects are also included in there. So here are some of the key areas that we're looking at for some adjustments for staffing. Some of these are reallocation, some of these are new positions. With the exception of the ARPA funds, we expect these all will have sustainable revenue streams to support them going forward. So the first area has been in clerk of courts. We have talked a little bit about some of the organizational structures that are going on in the clerk of courts system, specifically also tied to register of probate. We did not fill that role this last year, and we shifted some of those duties to the magistrates, meaning our court commissioners. But there's a specific support roles that need to take place. Clerk of Court Omri's staff has taken that role on, but we really need to have additional support staff. And so as part of that process, we also looked at where some other opportunities for efficiencies, and that was to add a fourth JA. We do have 4 judges, but there's some tasks that would go up and down the stairs literally and touch 2-3 hands. And so Commissioner Weber, Clerk Korhamry, and Judge Hugh have identified some tasks from those offices that can be consolidated to the JAs that would involve deputy status. So we believe this will create some efficiencies going forward and help and support functions for the clerk of court, register and probate, and juvenile clerk. Highway Department. We're looking at some changes, and we're calling this a transition budget because we do expect some attrition rates going there with folks looking to the future. So this will have some flexibility as we go in the future as well. First of all, many of you know Brian Unovich. He is here tonight, but we're looking at a little bit of a different role for him right now, split between highway shop and with the rest of the county. One of the big projects he's been working on is interurban. We have 2 PEs in the county, and that's Bill and Brian. And so when folks need a PE, who do they go to? Bill and Brian. And it's not just the county. It's many of our communities that they reach out and support, whether it's coordination with DOT, helping for grant applications, etc. And so we're going to see, with us not having like a planner role, if Brian splitting some time can help facilitate that both within our county organization, but also helping our communities with some things for the future. And then we're also going to be looking at some of the roles of superintendents changing a little bit related to highway and then fleet purchasing, facilities, and maintenance. Human resources, we are recommending developing that recruitment and retention. Again, that is using the American Rescue Plan Act dollars, and we'll talk through that briefly. There's some small reallocation of dollars, or maybe it's those dollars that were not allocated going to this position. We really view this as a need. I think if you talk to some of our department heads, many counties and private employers are consistently making direct calls to our staff, trying to recruit them. And so our goal is we want to play the game too. We need to be at the game. We need to be at the table. And it's not just direct calling. It's getting more active on social media, LinkedIn. Build the capacity to assist the HR director and her staff in helping moving these things along too. Right now we're at 2, and we hope to add a 3rd staff to replace one on Monday with position. But typically in HR, there's kind of a rule of thumb. You have 1 staff person for roughly every 100, 150 employees. We're at 3 for this position, and we have 600 employees. So as you look at that, the capacity issue, it is definitely needed, especially if we need to have a specific focus on these items going ahead. And then in human services, we have 7 positions that we're looking at. Leader House is our stabilization facility. We have struggled as we've had pool and part-time employees out there, and we want to return back to what was cut in 2008 to a full-time position out there. That is a 24-hour operation. As part of the opioid settlement dollars, and this was reviewed with the Human Services Board this morning, is to allocate some of the settlement dollars to an opioid outreach worker. As we talk to some of our stakeholders, everyone believes a lot of the focus should be on therapists and the wraparound approaches to the damages of opioids. And so as we look at those proceeds coming, this is one of the initial ideas related to those settlement. There'll be more to come later. The next 2 positions are really focused on the Watertown area. They're jointly funded with the Greater Watertown Health Foundation. So kind of backwards is a little bit, we started a emergency mental health crisis work in Fort Atkinson, 2 days a week, really focused working with law enforcement. This would extend those ideas up to Watertown. Our intention for Fort Atkinson is trying to make that a full-time role going into next year. But with the partnership of the Greater Watertown Health Foundation, we will add an emergency mental health crisis worker and a therapist specifically focused in the Watertown area. Now we talk about those 2 communities because we look at the data sources and the crisis calls that we do have. And between those 2 communities, that's about roughly 50% of all our calls. And so we're trying to make sure we're reaching out with the resources and the partnerships we already have in law enforcement to have that initial point of contact even earlier than we do today. So I think it's a positive step to continue the success in the programs that we have. We will add 2 administrative support positions, one in CLTS and one in ARDC. ARDC is our Adult Resource Disability Centers. As Kathy told the Human Services Board this morning, when that was developed, we have not added a staff person since I believe it was like 2008. And if you notice, our population is changing. And so having staff to help deal with that population is crucial to serve them as we needed. And the last part is adding a behavioral health manager. We have 5 divisions, I think most of you know, in the Human Services Department. We have 2 of those divisions are actually dual-headed. One is by our Human Services Director, Kathy Colley, and she also runs the Behavioral Health Division. And then Brett Reel is our Deputy Director, also runs the Child and Family area too. So as these areas have grown, span of control is important. And that's why we're looking at adding these positions to go ahead for the future. Again, we believe these revenue streams are sustainable as we look ahead. So quickly moving on to highway shop. We had a good year in terms of the efficiencies of laying asphalt. And the other positive thing is you look at the bids tonight, we got some great bids for asphalt. And so we want to take full advantage of those bids for asphalt because we're not sure where those pricing points will go for next year. So we want to maximize the ability to lay asphalt and rehab and repair roads going ahead to the future. And so on the left is really a summary of carryovers, and on the right is a project summary, but I'm going to show this more in graphic form. I think one key thing as I look to the right is we're adding approximately 8.6 miles. If we work this numbers right, of adding County Highway X and County Highway M to the projects for 2022. So that's really helping us improve the amount of asphalt that we're getting into the program this year. Tonight you will also see that we're going to make a recommendation for some design work through a professional service contract. The staff is quickly looking at the infrastructure bill as it comes through the state to locals. And there's a phase one that's quickly coming out, focused on rehab, basically mill and overlay projects. And so we like to accelerate that process by getting design work in place. So that's what this STP design work is shown as a carryover, and that'll be an agenda item tonight. And also, as we look at ARPA, we're trying to reserve the match we think we'll be needing with some of the recommendations from American Rescue Plan Act dollars. We would allocate about $1 million for match of federal and state infrastructure dollars going ahead for the future. So map-wise, this is what it looks like. On the left is our current fiscal year. It's really focused on County Highway S and County Highway A. These are a little bit more robust projects with pulverizing as well as paving and a little bit milling, so a little bit more. On the right, and I apologize, not everyone can see the lower level, but it's focused on two areas. County Highway X, that's going from the south side of Watertown down to County Highway B. And then in the southern part of the county, going from Fort Atkinson on County Highway M over to County Highway N. So again, some opportunities to accelerate parts of our program. Get additional projects done in Jefferson County. And then looking ahead to FY 2023, as part of that reallocation of ARPA dollars, on the left is County Highway Q, that corridor. That's what's in the current 5-year capital plan to be done in 2023. If we are successful, we're looking at two projects. One is County Highway Up, basically going from this area here down to Sullivan, and then south of Sullivan down to County Highway CI, and then north from County Highway B on County Highway E up to Watertown. So if we're lucky enough, we get two projects. Hopefully we get at least one. But the design work is there as we look at future project needs. So with this amendment, our goal is to get this all done in 2023. And then finally, as part of this, between the approval of the budget last year and today, 4 of our departments were successful in getting some additional grant awards, and this will formally amend the budgets to incorporate the appropriations of the increased dollars coming from grants. So the first is Fair Park. They were one of 2 fair parks in the state who received a state tourism grant from the governor's office, focused primarily on upgrades to the activity centers, campsites, and adding fiber out there. That was about $242,000 that they received. So a very nice grant and good work from the team over there at the Fair Park. Salad Support received over a $17,000 grant that's going to be focused on some upgrades to some of their computer equipment. My favorite sheriff got 2 grants. We'll make sure you all know where these seatbelt enforcement and speeding enforcement grants will go, but this will pay for overtime in certain areas. But in all seriousness, the deterrence on this is needed. And I think Sheriff talked to you a lot about in a couple last months about his passion for law enforcement and traffic enforcement and what does that mean to prevent tragic accidents. And I think one thing many people have talked about is some bad habits really got picked up in COVID, and those habits haven't changed. And you see them a lot out there more. And I think Bill and Brian can talk about what their highway guys see on the interstate system, some near crashes our folks have been involved with. So I think some of those items are needed, and that's why these grants are important. And then finally, Land and Water, they developed a partnership to be a fiduciary agent with a program related to non-point source pollution. As these funds will pass through, it increases that appropriation by $21,000, but a worthwhile program that they're partnering with. So as part of tonight, you would approve these grant appropriations as well. And then finally, and this is, you'll see the folder ARPA is in your packet tonight too, so you can get a closer look at this, and you'll see a breakdown on the next page. But 6 key areas that we're looking at. One was we utilized some of these project costs for the water main project on South Campus. It was a little bit higher than expected. Water mains, when the initial rules were listed, was a perfect project. Then we have to do the lovely lost revenue calculations. I'm glad we did it, because as we were constructing it, it just started to keep falling apart as the construction equipment went over it. So it was a much needed fix for a pretty old pipe, but as repaired and up and operational. We had some small changes to project scopes, mainly as we added fire hydrants as an example. We had to work with some different elevations, so a couple of these things were some rings to elevate it had to be taken in, so that was a little higher than we had planned. The allocation for recruitment and retention position over 3 years. As Mark and I looked at this, one of the key issues with the American Rescue Plan Act dollars was for people to recover. And so we think actually this probably could have been a qualifiable expense before the changes to the rules, just because this would help the county recover and get positions back to Jefferson County. So again, that would be for the 3-year term ending in 2024. Some slight changes to previous allocation, which helps freeze up dollars for the infrastructure project we just talked about. We reserved about $1 million for public health. We just didn't know when this was being proposed where public health was going to go and the needs for it. Obviously, our numbers are dropping significantly. We're in low transmission zone right now. Limited testing requests coming in, limited vaccine requests now. So we believe we can reduce that number. Same with reducing assistance to individuals. We're just not seeing the demand for that. We still want to hold a little bit of dollars, but we think it's important to keep a little bit, but return money so it can get moving out. We also talking about a lot of housing efforts, and one thing that we are looking at, again, a partnership with the Greater Watertown Health Foundation is partnered with a group called the Hope Community Capital to really identify some skills gap or gaps that we need to help look at housing needs in Jefferson County and our communities. And it really is a multi-pronged approach to activate studies that we have done. We've done a lot of studies, given us a lot of data, but now we want to get that stuff done. And so we want to develop a plan. So this is a partnership to move that forward. And then some slight description changes. So we talked about economic clusters to include housing initiatives. Again, that's the biggest thing we're hearing from employers is we need housing to support what they're doing as a business. And then broadening the definition of technology. A lot of this is including technology for recovery, operations improvement, and also focus on social media engagement processes too. And then on page 27, you see it all spelled out, and we're not going to go through it, but it talks through where we started with the original budget, the proposed amendments, the amended budget tonight, and what's been spent. And then opioid settlement, part of tonight was that therapist and outreach position to be funded. About 2 weeks ago, we finally got a synergy of enough parties in the country to sign on to the lawsuit that you all approved in December. So we suspect the third quarter of this year, we begin to see money coming forward. We'll be bringing back some items back to the board in future dates to talk about what that settlement looks like. So finally, as we look ahead to the future, just 3 main things, and just to rehash the story. We need to continue to do our efforts of analysis with some of these revenue streams and the trends as we prepare the 2023 budget. What is sustainable and what are one-time revenue streams or expenditures, so we have a good budget for 2023. Continue our efforts to compete and opportunities to be that employer of choice. We got some great teams, but obviously some wages are moving on us, and we got to be competitive. Even what we did this year with wages, we're still behind. And I will tell you, as I've gone to some recent meetings, every county is talking about doing another market study. So we'll continue to have those conversations and look at that for the future. I think just continue our efforts to collaborate. I kind of bring this forward because we look at opportunities to work together with our nonprofits, our business communities, and our other local governments. I'm seeing an increased asks from local communities to start looking about greater collaboration in various studies that we did 2 years ago, and to maybe execute some of those items just because of some cost centers coming upon many of our communities, and look at to the future. So, Mr. Chair, guys, as quick as I could have gone trying to explain this all, but I'm open to any questions anybody might have.
Questions from the board? Supervisor Smith.
Concerning the fair part, did they receive taxpayer money and stayed within budget, or are they completely off of the taxpayer base?
So from 2021, based on the results, what was projected as being budget of taxpayer dollars was not needed. That reverted back to the general fund contingency, and as a result, you can say from 2021 they were off the tax levy. We do have some dollars allocated for this year, but we also have some buffers put in place with some revenue streams. And so hopefully, if we have success, they'll be off the levy again this year based on how they're tracking right now.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Waymeyer. Takes us to item number 10, Broadband Working Group. A resolution creating a public-private partnership for broadband expansion in Jefferson County. Ms. Renard.
Resolution number 2021-55. Broadband has often been referred to as the infrastructure of the future, impacting business investment, education access, residential attraction, and quality of life. During the development of Jefferson County's strategic plan, broadband expansion to underserved and unserved parts of the county was highlighted as a key initiative for the county that impacts everyone, such as rural and urban residents and business and agribusiness, by providing access to education and lifelong learning. The importance of broadband was reinforced through Jefferson County's update of its comprehensive plan, which was approved in 2021, where broadband was determined to be a demonstrated need brought forward by our communities and other stakeholders. Further, there were many lessons learned during COVID-19 related to the impact of limited internet service. Jefferson County, under the guidance of the Broadband Working Group, has received its Broadband Forward certification and Telecommuter Forward certification. Further, the county engaged with broadband service providers Bertram Communications and Networks Internet in previous public-private partnerships for purposes of expanding broadband in Jefferson County. These partnerships resulted in the county receiving approximately $1,118,000 in CARES Act funds to build 4 fixed wireless towers with Bertram Communications that also facilitated co-location of county communication system. Following this grant, the county continued to work on partnerships and grant opportunities for the expansion of reliable and adequate broadband in Jefferson County. This included continued efforts to look at private partners that could assist in broadband improvements. The county has reserved over $2 million in American Rescue Plan Act funds to assist in these improvements. This resolution authorizes the county administrator to enter into a public-private partnership with Hilbert Communications LLC Bug Tussle, Charter Spectrum, Edge Broadband, AT&T, and other broadband service providers to look at opportunities for the continued expansion and improvement of broadband in Jefferson County through Wisconsin Public Service Commission grants, other state and federal grant programs, and collaborative efforts with private companies. The Jefferson County Broadband Working Group and the Finance Committee approved this resolution at a joint meeting on March 3rd, 2022, and recommended forwarding to the county board for approval. The fiscal note. Passage of this resolution will have no fiscal impact at this time. If Jefferson County is awarded a grant pursuant to this resolution, a separate resolution to accept the grant, authorize a new agreement with providers, and amend the budget accordingly will be brought to the Board of Supervisors for approval. I move approval of this resolution.
Second from Supervisor Backlund. Questions? Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Wow.
Opposed? Hearing none, the resolution passes. Takes us to resolution authorizing creation of a public-private partnership with Hilbert Communications LLC to explore financing options for broadband expansion throughout Jefferson County. Supervisor Renard.
So the first 2 paragraphs of this resolution are the same as the first 2 paragraphs of the last one, so I'll just skip down, start reading in the 3rd paragraph. Jefferson County continues its effort to work with partners to find opportunities through grants to assist in expansion of broadband. Although there is a demonstrated need for broadband in Jefferson County, recent changes to Wisconsin Public Service Commission maps indicate that there is sufficient broadband service available for the residents of Jefferson County. As a result, Jefferson County has an additional challenge to overcome, this Public Service Commission determination when seeking state grant funds. There is clearly a need for expanded broadband service within Jefferson County today, and there is growing concern about the impacts of not having broadband service available to our residents and businesses as they strive to live, work, learn, and grow. Jefferson County staff have been working with Bug Tussle and its parent entity, Hilbert Communications, on a financing option in addition to grants, which would provide countywide broadband to homes as well as additional wireless service and increased cellular service with data. The ability of this financing option will allow this project to move forward without grant proceeds, thereby helping to ensure project completion. 5 counties led by Fond du Lac County have taken steps to authorize this financing option in 2021. The conceptual framework was introduced to the Broadband Working Group on February 3rd, 2022, with additional discussion and approval on March 3rd, 2022, to continue action to move forward with this financing option. This financing option utilizes revenue debt conduit debt that is authorized by public entities. Fond du Lac County serves as the issuing county, with participating counties such as Jefferson County serving as a guarantor for these funds for their portion of the project. Bug Tussle would be the primary borrower and responsible for debt payments. This financing would be further secured by Hilbert Communications with a final guarantee by Jefferson County, being third in line to guarantee payments. Jefferson County would receive 40 annual basis points, or 40%, or 0.40%, as a cash payment on its portion of outstanding debt for being the guarantor. Any costs incurred by Jefferson County using this financing option are subject to reimbursement by Bug Tussle and Hilbert Communication. A debt service fund is required to be established with the bond trustee along with reserve of sufficient debt capacity. U.S. Bank is the trustee for the debt service fund, and Jefferson County will be required to deposit an amount equal to one debt service payment into the fund. This amount is estimated to be $750,000 to $1 million and could potentially be funded by bond proceeds. The total estimated project cost is between $11 million and $15 million. The proposed partnership would facilitate the construction of 3 towers, installation of 188 miles of fiber optic cable, and the ability for interconnection of Jefferson County Communications System and other county facilities through 24, I think maybe that should be strands of fiber optic infrastructure designated for future public use. This fiber network would provide the backbone for installation of fiber directly to buildings and homes, as well as providing additional fixed wireless access and enhanced cellular coverage. A total of 10,000 addresses will potentially have access to the proposed fiber optic infrastructure, and up to 11,500 addresses will have wireless access, 5,200 of which are in non-urban areas. The project proposes to initially provide at least 3,500 buildings and homes with fiber, with additional fiber installation to be determined based on the final project engineering and budget. The next round of partnerships with Bug Tussle Hilbert are poised to be finalized by July of 2022. Construction would expect to begin in late winter of 2022 or spring of 2023, with main infrastructure completed approximately 6 months after the start of construction and service provided to end users within 12 to 18 months. Finally, there is a potential partnership opportunity to co-locate fiber infrastructure called Point of Presence on county property at county highway satellite facilities that would assist in interconnectivity bandwidth and redundancy for emergency communications. The Jefferson County Broadband Working Group and the Finance Committee approved this resolution at a meeting on February 3rd, 2022, and recommended forwarding to the county board for approval. The fiscal note, passage of this resolution will have no fiscal impact at this time. If Jefferson County pursues this financing model, the Board of Supervisors will be required to approve additional resolutions to meet necessary statutory requirements, to include a final resolution of 3/4 vote of the county board to issue bonds in the amount of the total project cost of Jefferson County's portion should the borrower default. This final resolution would allow Jefferson County to issue bonds, if needed, to satisfy its portion of the debt incurred without additional action by the county board. I move approval of this resolution.
Second by Supervisor Backlund. Questions? Discussion? Were you raising?
Yeah.
Supervisor Nart.
Yes, I just wanted to say that this is a new concept for us and for the county, this kind of public-private partnership. And the finance of it is a little complicated. So if anybody has any questions, I believe Mr. Waymeyer is prepared to explain exactly how the financing is structured and what kind of risk would Jefferson County would incur in setting this up.
So hands over. I think Mr. Kelly is up first, and then we'll go to Mr. Backlund. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are there maps available showing where this coverage enhancement will occur? I know I've had a lot of calls from constituents in the town of Waterloo, and in the past, they have not been helped.
Yeah, that's the project overview map. And then later we can show the map the Public Service Commission is using to show purported coverage of broadband internet.
Yeah, quick. Mr. Chair, is it all right? So this map is as of February 22nd. This was just basically released. And as I joked, as I've been working with the Fort Atkinson School District 2, they said magically overnight the broadband issue was fixed in Jefferson County. So from a point of grants, those colors are not good because that means everyone has full service. Basically, it meets all the requirements. And so we know that's probably not an accurate statement based on feedback many of us get from an ongoing basis going forwards. And so that's why those maps are important. So this map down here is currently what is proposed to be designed. Obviously, the blue routes, primarily around county highways, but as where the fiber links will go. Those red dots that explode, those are currently the communication tower sites that we operate. So this would allow for those to be integrated with a fiber redundancy system. And then these purple dots here are some of the towers that they would look to hook up with as well. The blue ones are existing towers that they would also try to incorporate to help with fixed wireless and cellular service. And so the intention is just to keep building out from those main, these are called middle mile fiber, and then continue to find points they can continue to build fiber rings from there. As Supervisor Bernard mentioned, there's about 3,500 to 3,800 that would have initially fiber built from there, but the opportunity does exist if we want to look at some of our ARPA funds to go towards this, that we could increase that number as part of this project. And then this slide here quickly is what the budget looks like that we would be turning in right now for the grant that is due on March 17th. So that's why these items are before the board tonight, because we have a grant that's due next week we're working with these partners on right now. The 40 basis points is shown in this lower right-hand corner, and that's approximately $846,000. So that 40 basis points as a revenue stream to the county is what we would get from this agreement at this point in time. So.
Questions? Discussion? Oh, I've got Supervisor Backlund.
Yeah, I just want to add, the reason we're looking at this method is, you know, if you don't get a grant, you stop. And then you apply for a grant and you stop. And we felt it important for the community and the county to be able to go forward and build this out. And this seemed like a really good intention of being able to finance this going forward with a partnership. If we get the grants, it's great. It helps us even more. But we wanted to keep the county moving forward with fiber and broadband. And so that was our rationale, bringing it to the board, that we don't want to, like, we've been not doing anything since we lost the last grant. So we want to make sure that we keep moving forward. We can still apply for the grants. It doesn't take any of that away. And we just think that this is a real plus to bring internet to as much of Jefferson County as we can. And we all know more and more people are working from home, and there are some people that aren't moving into Jefferson County because of communication. So we just think this is a real plus.
Supervisor Menard?
Supervisor Backlund is completely correct in everything he said. And then I just wanted to point out that this is really the biggest project we've ever proposed. It's pretty huge. And that's why it's so important that we could move forward with this regardless of whether we got a grant or not. Because just look, it covers the whole county. We've never done that before. We've never proposed it before. And we've never really proposed a fiber network like this before. This is the kind of project that the PSC seems to be favoring now when the grant applications go in. So they may like this, they may think it's too big, but they should know that we're not waiting around anymore to get grant money. We're moving forward because we recognize that people in Jefferson County need broadband internet access. So your support of this is, I think, really important and kind of maybe a turning point in the efforts of our county and moving forward to expand broadband access.
Supervisor Kennard?
I guess my question goes to where the grant or where the guarantee of these funds, right? So if the other two companies default comes to us, at that point, would we be the owner of all of this infrastructure?
So that short answer is yes, that is correct. So Mark, Blair, and I have been doing a lot of digging of documents. There's about, the first round was about 2,000 pages with the closing of the previous one. And in there is a series of documents that are part of it. And one thing that you'll see in there is a mortgagee, basically. It's a lien against all the infrastructure. So if there would be a default, we would own the whole fiber network system that we could then work with a private another internet service provider, an operational agreement if it comes down to it. We are reviewing their financial statements. We feel pretty positive where they're at in terms of being able to support this from their own debt payments as a result, though, too, just so you're aware. That's some of the due diligence that will be ongoing before this is finally brought before the county board.
At 15 million, it's quite a debt, you know.
It is, and keep them, Fond du Lac County actually did the initial authorization, and it actually feeds back to Fond du Lac County of $240 million. So we will feed through Fond du Lac County as part of this deal going forward.
Supervisor Backlund?
And with that said, that July, so because of that, there's like 170 million left.
Yes.
So we would structure through Fond du Lac for the debt service. And that's kind of the important thing. It's going to be the first ones basically to the table. We'll get that. Otherwise, you'll have to, either Fond du Lac or us or some other county will have to initiate the whole process over again. So the goal would be to piggyback on something that's already there, the mechanisms in place to make this happen. So that was the other reason bringing it up to the board, that we felt if we delayed too long in this, bringing it to the board, we might miss that opportunity and be a year or more behind again, waiting for funding.
Supervisor Christensen?
Thank you. So Bug Tussle is a private enterprise. I'm guessing that they will seek to sell subscriptions to residents and businesses, make their money and pay off their part of this financial arrangement. And if there's enough subscriptions, they've probably done their business plan to show that. There shouldn't be any problem. We shouldn't really have to go into sweating out if we have to pay it off. That's right?
Supervisor Zarling, you had your hand up, brother?
Yeah, I just had a couple comments. I strongly support this for all the reasons cited. It's critical that Jefferson County has thorough broadband throughout. It's a big deal for housing. It is a real big deal for people that want to potentially move here, stay here, be retained here. All roads connect. Anecdotally, I have a little bit of experience with Bertram and their what used to be Motorola, but their microwave systems that they use in underserved areas. There's a company I work with up in Allenton area that for a long time was the only way to get broadband. And it's a good system. Their support's good. I love that there are multiple people coming to the table, you know, Spectrum, obviously, AT&T, other providers. I love everything about this. I strongly support it. I don't see any scenario where the need for this is going to be diminished in any way. And to Supervisor Backlund's point, the time is now. Even moving forward right now, we're still looking at 2.5 years out or whatever for implementation. So yeah, I'm all in on this one.
I want to make sure there's nobody else before you speak. Supervisor Backlund, go ahead.
Just for Walt. So one of the big providers, if you notice, all these fiber routes you're seeing, they all run to AT&T. So we're not their only. It's not just internet, but it's fiber for the cell phone. So AT&T is also. They do a lot of conjunction with AT&T. So AT&T Wireless will put up the cell tower, but then Hilbert Communications runs the fiber to the cell towers. So that's all part of it, this whole infrastructure plan. So it's just not internet for everybody, but think of it as like a backhaul for communications throughout the county.
Any other questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, it passes. Takes us on to item 11, Executive Committee Ordinance 2022 to 2024 County Board Rules. Supervisor Renard.
These are the same rules that I introduced at our February meeting. They've been repackaged in this snazzy sort of document here that has page numbers on it now for your convenient reference. So I will move approval of these rules for the 2022-2024 county board term.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Who seconded? Supervisor Johns. Questions, discussion? Just a reminder, this takes a 3/4 vote tonight to approve. Supervisor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are two committees that deal directly with public health and safety. The Local Emergency Planning Committee, which is featured on page 14 of the proposed rules, and the Traffic Safety Commission, which is on page 15. I move to amend the proposed board rules as follows. Under M, the Local Emergency Planning Committee, I move to insert before the last statement in that description the following statement: at least one Jefferson County supervisor shall serve on the Local Emergency Planning Committee. And then under R, the Traffic Safety Commission, before the last statement in that description, to add the following statement: at least one county board supervisor shall serve on the Traffic Safety Commission. Thank you.
Do I have a second to that?
I'll second the motion.
Second by
Renard.
Renard. Discussion. Discussion on the amendment. Either one of them? Suggest, okay. No discussion? Okay, Supervisor Christensen.
I wonder, since we do have Sheriff Milbrath here, and he's the principal person on the Traffic Safety Commission, if he has any thoughts on any improvement or difficulties by having another person, elected person. He shakes his head no. I guess it means no problem.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Anything else? Seeing none, this will be a roll call vote. Oh, excuse me, we'll vote on the amendment first. That just takes a simple majority. We can do that by voice. All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? I think the ayes have it. Okay, now on the, we need a roll call vote on the rules as amended. This would be County Board Rules Ordinance, would have been introduced last. So it would have a designation from the last time it was introduced last month.
Just put a folder.
Okay, you're able to vote. Go ahead.
Supervisor David?
Aye.
Supervisor Roberts?
Aye.
Twenty-nine yes, 1 no, 0 absent.
Passes. Takes us to item B under Executive Committee, Resolution designate the official Jefferson County newspaper. Supervisor Renard.
Resolution number 2021 8. Every 2 years, Jefferson County enters into a contract with a local newspaper to serve as the county's official newspaper for the publication of county board proceedings and other necessary legal publications as required by Wisconsin statutes. The existing contract with the Daily Jefferson County Union and the Watertown Daily Times as the official Jefferson County newspapers expires on April 18th, 2022. The Executive Committee solicited proposals from APG Media of Southern Wisconsin, which owns the Daily Jefferson County Union and the Watertown Daily Times, to be the county's official newspaper for the next 2 years, commencing April 19th, 2022 and ending April 15th, 2024. APG Media of Southern Wisconsin submitted 3 bids. 1 bid for publishing in the Daily Jefferson County Union, 1 bid for publishing in the Watertown Daily Times, and 1 bid for publishing in both newspapers. All bids include online posting. After reviewing the bids and considering the costs of publication and the circulation of each newspaper in Jefferson County, the Executive Committee voted to forward this resolution to the County Board to designate the Daily Jefferson County Union as the official Jefferson County newspaper for the 2022-2024 term. The Executive Committee also recommended allowing county staff to determine the most cost-effective per-line publication rate, 9-point font versus 6.5-point font, and allowing staff to publish in both newspapers when necessary to reach subscribers in the Watertown area. And you could see Here in the chart there, we're recommending bid number 1. Fiscal note. It is anticipated that the fiscal impact of this resolution will remain within the current budgeted amount based on 2020-2022 publication requirements. I move approval of this resolution.
Second by Supervisor Brogler. Questions, discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, passes. Takes us to item 12, Finance Committee, resolution authorizing year-end requests to carry over budget appropriations from fiscal year 2021 to fiscal year 2022 and amending the 2022 budget. Supervisor Jones.
Resolution number 2021-59.
No, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. This one's actually 58. Amy, yours is 57.
That's what I had.
All right, no,
I thank you.
you know what I mean.
At
Yeah.
year-end- Yeah, no problem.
He's a
At
numbers
year-end,
guy.
departments are required to submit carryover requests for funds that are unspent. If the county administrator approves the request, it is reviewed by the finance committee and acted on by the county board for approval. There is a total of $54,853,172.99 proposed to be carried over from the fiscal year 2021 to the fiscal year 2022. And of this amount, $23,232,555.36 requires county board approval. The finance committee recommends that funds of $23,232,555.36 be carried over from the fiscal year 2021 to fiscal year 2022. The finance committee also recommends the following 2022 budget amendment for staffing changes and grant acceptance. The staff changes and the grants are listed below. The Finance Committee considered this resolution at its March 3rd, 2022 meeting and recommended forward to the County Board for approval. The Executive Committee and the Human Resource Committee also reviewed this resolution, examining each committee's area of responsibility as established in the County Board rules, and agrees with the Finance Committee's recommendation forward to the County Board for approval. Fiscal note. As a budget amendment, this resolution requires 20 of 30 affirmative votes for passage. Explanation of governmental funds. Non-spendable funds are funds that are included prepaid items, deposit and inventory accounts. Spendable restricted funds are funds that are legally restricted by statutes, contract, or funding sources. Spendable committed funds are funds that are spendable at the discretion of the county. Explanation of retired area funds. Highway. Capital net position represents items that are depreciated along with land which is not depreciated. Restricted net position relates to municipal deposits for a subsequent year work by the county. Non-restricted net position includes both required items and discretionary items. Mr. Chair, I move for passage of this resolution.
Do I have a second? Second by Supervisor Jacob. Questions? I think this was pretty thoroughly explained earlier in the meeting. Any discussion? This requires a 2/3 vote. This will be a roll call vote.
Supervisor David?
Yes, I vote aye.
Thank you. Supervisor Roberts?
Yes.
Okay, we have 30 yes, 0 no, 0 absent.
Resolution passes. Next resolution, authorizing contingency fund transfer to offset fiscal year 2021 departmental deficits. Supervisor Renard. Oh, excuse me, Supervisor Jones, sorry. Getting used to it.
Resolution number 2021-59. At year end, the county administrator requests a budget transfer from contingency or general funds to offset department deficit. This resolution will authorize transferring $82,220 from the contingency fund to various county departments due to expenditures and excess of appropriations in fiscal year 2021. The Finance Committee considered this resolution at its March 3rd, 2022 meeting and recommended forward to the County Board for approval. Fiscal note, changes in software and election security process during the 2020 election raised costs for multi-year license and support in 2021, and printing costs for mail-in ballots increased due to an increase in mail-in ballots requested. And changes in health benefits during open enrollment after the budget process occurred in the District Attorney's Office, leading to an unexpected increase in health insurance costs and paper service costs escalated as trials were rescheduled. And administrative expenses in the library exceeded budget by $880. As a budget amendment, county board approval requires a 2/3 vote of the entire membership of the county board. 20 members of the 30-member county board must vote in favor of the budget amendment. Mr. Chair, I move for passage of this resolution.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second Supervisor Johns. Questions, discussion? Good, pay our bills. Excellent. This is a roll call vote, please.
Supervisor David,
Aye, yes.
Supervisor Roberts,
Yes.
we have 30 yes, 0 no, 0 absent.
Thank you. Passes as presented. Takes us to item 13, Highway Committee. Resolution authorizing application for Federal Surface Transportation Program funding and entering into a contract for county highway design services. Supervisor Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Authorizing, or resolution number 2021-60, authorizing application for Federal Surface Transportation Program funding and entering into contract for county highway design services. Recent passage of the federal infrastructure bill has provided additional funds to Wisconsin for local projects through the Federal Surface Transportation Program, Rural and Surface Transportation Program Bridge. The county highway departments have the ability to apply for these programs in 2022, which will provide funding for 80% of construction costs for 2023. To receive funding through these programs, counties must include project designs and specifications as part of the application process. This resolution authorizes Jefferson County Highway Department to apply for funding through the Federal Surface Transportation Program, Rural with Short and Elliott Hendrickson to provide design and specifications for milling and paving work on County Highway F and County Highway E projects at the cost of $122,728 as part of the application process. The Highway Committee considered the resolution at its meeting on February 22nd, 2022, and recommended forwarding it to the County Board of Supervisors. Fiscal note, funds for the highway design will come from the Highway Department STP account number is listed. The service being funded with 2021 carryover and is fully budgeted. I move for adoption of this resolution.
Second by Supervisor Schultz. Questions, discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Resolution passes. Resolution approving the 2022 Local Road Improvement Program asphalt vendor bid.
Resolution number 2021-62, approving 2022 asphalt pulverizing and milling quotes. On February 17th, 2022, the Highway Department received its quotes from area vendors for asphalt pulverizing and milling. The Highway Department schedules all projects to work on site with selected vendor. This resolution authorizes Jefferson County Highway Department to accept the seasonal quotes for 2022 from all vendors listed below, utilizing the lowest vendor unless the vendor cannot meet project schedule of the department, in which case the next lowest vendor shall be used. And they are listed, pretty competitive rates there from what they have been. Fiscal note, funds have been allocated in 2021 highway maintenance account number 53311 and highway construction account number 53312. I move for adoption of this resolution.
Do I have a second? Second by Supervisor Schultz. Questions, discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none? Move on to the next resolution, approving 2022 asphalt pulverizing and milling quotes.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I actually flipped the wrong page and read the wrong one. That's why we were at 62. So we will go back to resolution number 2021-61.
Okay.
Jefferson County Highway Department obtains funding through Wisconsin Department of Transportation Local Road Improvement Program for select projects for 2022. Jefferson County solicited bids from three road improvement projects funded through this program for the purchase of asphalt material. These three projects are, number one, County Highway A from State Highway 106 to Highway 12. Number two, Hartwig Boulevard and Johnson Creek from North Watertown Road to Hartwig Drive, and Hartwig Drive from Hartwig Boulevard to the end of Hartwig Drive, and number three, Ranch Road in the town of Farmington from Saucer Road to County Highway D. This resolution awards the asphalt bid for 2022 local road improvement program for the above projects to Payne and Dolan Incorporated as the lowest responsible bidder. The Highway Committee has considered this resolution at its meeting on February 22nd, 2022, and recommended forwarding it to the County Board of Supervisors for this approval. Fiscal note, the Wisconsin Department of Transportation requires asphalt purchase projects through the local road improvement program be awarded to a paving contractor. The funds for the asphalt purchases will come from the Wisconsin DOT local road improvement program. I move for adoption of resolution 2021-61.
Second by Supervisor Schultz. Questions? Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Resolution passes. Resolution approving 2022 pre-mixed asphalt vendor quotes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Resolution number 2021-63. On February 17th, 2022, the Highway Department received quotes from all area vendors for pre-mixed asphalt for delivery to highway construction projects. The vendor selected by the county will be determined by the location of the project and the plant location to obtain the best price for each project. This resolution authorizes Jefferson County to purchase pre-mixed asphalt concrete products at the prices listed below from any of the asphalt vendors in 2022. The Highway Committee considered resolution at its meeting on February 22nd, 2022, and recommended forwarding to the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors for approval. Fiscal note, the Highway Department will determine the best price for each project when selecting a plant location. The department will also consider plant schedule, availability, and production rates. Funds have been allocated in 2021 highway maintenance account number 53311 and the highway construction account number 53312. I move for adoption of this resolution.
Again, second by Supervisor Schultz. Questions, discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the resolution pass. And lastly, resolution approving 2022 seal coat oil vendor quotes.
Resolution number 2021-64. On February 17th, 2022, the Highway Department received quotes from from area vendors for seal coat oil. The Highway Department purchases oil from vendors for delivery to the project site. The vendor selected by the county will be determined by the location of the project and the plant location to obtain the best price for each project. This resolution authorizes Jefferson County Highway Department to purchase emulsion products from the vendors listed below at the prices listed below. The Highway Committee considered this resolution at its meeting on February 22nd, 2022, and recommended forwarding it to the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors for approval. And fiscal note, the funds are budgeted in the highway maintenance account and the highway construction account as listed. I move for approval of this resolution.
And again, second from Supervisor Schultz. Questions, discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the resolution passes. Takes us to Human Services Board, proclamation proclaiming the month of April 2022 as Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention Month. Supervisor Jones. Oh, Supervisor. I thought, is this from?
Supervisor Jones, are on mute.
Supervisor Jones, a proclamation? Who's the Vice Chair of Human Services? Well, I know Mr. Winnicke's on. It's all yours. You read it.
Okay, a simple note. No, I am not the vice chair. Proclamation 2021-5, proclaiming the month of April 2022 as Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention Month. Whereas child abuse and neglect is a complex and ongoing problem in our society, affecting many children in Jefferson County, and whereas every child is entitled to be loved, cared for, nurtured, feel secure, and be free from verbal, sexual, emotional, and physical abuse and neglect, and whereas it is the responsibility of every adult who comes in contact with a child to protect that child's inalienable right to a safe and nurturing childhood, and whereas Jefferson County has many dedicated individuals and organizations who work daily to counter the problem of child maltreatment and help parents obtain the assistance they need, and whereas our communities are stronger when all citizens become aware of child maltreatment prevention and become involved in supporting parents to raise their children in a safe and nurturing environment, and whereas effective child abuse prevention programs succeed because of partnerships among families, social service agencies, schools, religious and civic organizations, law enforcement agencies, and the business community. And whereas the Human Services Board, at its February 8th, 2022 meeting, unanimously voted to forward this proclamation to the County Board of Supervisors for adoption. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims the month of April 2022 to be Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention Month. Fiscal note, adoption of this proclamation will have no fiscal impact to Jefferson County other than the expenditure of staff time. Promotional materials will be funded by outside private donations. Mr. Chair, I move approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any number, pick one. Supervisor Kelly.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, questions, discussion?
I have a comment, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Winnicke, for reading that for me. I apologize for being on mute. This is a very well-timed proclamation. At this morning's Human Service meeting, it was reported that there has been a sharp increase in child abuse. So a lot of times we think these things happen in other places, but we also have concerns here. And the proclamation, well, presents the idea that we're all in this to protect children. So let's support this proclamation. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Jones. Any other comments? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the proclamation is passed. Parks Committee, resolution accepting bids for construction and paving the interurban trail phases 1 and 2. Supervisor Johns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Resolution number 2021 65. Lots tonight. Accepting bids for the construction and paving of the interurban trail phases 1 and 2. The Jefferson County Parks Department is continuing construction of a recreational trail for hiking, biking, and cross-country skiing on utility right-of-way owned by We Energies. The proposed trail is 10.96 miles and is located on the former interurban rail line between the city of Watertown and the city of Oconomowoc. The path cross-section will consist of a 10-foot wide asphalt surface with 2-foot wide aggregate shoulders. The project is located primarily in Jefferson County with 10 miles of trail and a portion in the Waukesha County with 1 mile of trail. The city of Watertown and the city of Oconomowoc are the project boundaries. Bids were solicited and 2 vendors submitted proposals for Phase 1 and 3 vendors submitted proposals for Phase 2 of this project. The Parks Committee considered the proposals at its meeting on February 28, 2022, and voted to forward this resolution to the County Board to accept the bids of Janke General Contractors Incorporated and Wolf Paving Company Incorporated as the lowest bidders. As you can see below, on the paving and shoulders of Phase 1.1 and 1.3, Wolf Paving Company came in with the lower bids. And then on the construction and paving of Phase 2, with the following results, Janke General Contractors came in with a low bid. So now therefore be resolved that Wolf Paving Incorporated is selected as the lowest responsible bidder for construction of Phase 1.1 and 1.3 at a cost not to exceed $253,799, and Janke General Contractors Incorporated is selected as the lowest responsible bidder for Phase 2 to construct and pave 4.7 miles of the interurban trail from River Road to County Road Highway F at a cost not to exceed $1,627,947.88. Fiscal note. Jefferson County has approved budget carryover amounts of $479,840.92 in the Parks Department and $750,000 in other contingency to complete phases 1, 2, and 3 of the interurban trail project. Phases 1.1 and 1.3 will be funded by a Knowles Nelson Stewardship Grant from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources in the amount of $27,500 and budgeted carryover in the amount of $226,299. Phase 2 will be funded by a Transportation Alternative Program grant from the U.S. Federal Highway Administration in the amount of $1,102,840, with supplemental funding provided by a Knowles Nelson Stewardship Grant in the amount of up to $655,252, with any remainder to be funded by carryover. So I moved for adoption of this resolution.
Second.
Second was by
Renard.
Supervisor Renard. Any other questions? Discussion? This will be a roll call vote.
Supervisor David? Supervisor David? Supervisor?
Was yes.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Roberts?
Yes.
We have 29 yes, 1 no, and 1 absent.
Resolution.
0 absent, sorry.
The resolution passes. Resolution amended contract with K&L Engineering Services to complete the Jefferson County Interurban Trail Project Phase 3 feasibility study. Supervisor Johns.
Phase 3. The Jefferson County Parks Department is continuing construction of a recreational trail for hiking, biking, and cross-country skiing on utility right-of-way owned by We Energies. The proposed trail is 10.96 miles and is located on the former interurban trail line between the city of Watertown and the city of Oconomowoc. The path cross-section will consist of 10-foot wide asphalt surface and a 2-foot wide aggregate shoulders. The project is located primarily in Jefferson County with 10 miles of trail and a portion of Waukesha County with 1 mile of trail. The city of Watertown and the city of Oconomowoc are the project boundaries. Phase 3 of the trail includes a 4-mile section from County Highway F in Ixonia to West 2nd Street in Oconomowoc. To prepare for this final phase of the project, additional design and engineering studies are required. This work will prepare Jefferson County staff for additional grant writing and fundraising for the project, including engineering needs, permitting, wetland impacts, updated cost estimates, and inventory and analysis of existing infrastructure. This information will also assist the county as it coordinates with both Waukesha County and the city of Oconomowoc for work that crosses county lines. KLN Engineering provided design and coordination services for phases 1 and 2 of the interurban trail after being selected by the county board through a competitive bidding process, and the Jefferson County Parks Department desires to continue to use the services of KLN Engineering to complete a feasibility study for phase 3. The Jefferson County Parks Committee reviewed the proposal by KNL Engineering and determined that due to the complexity of the project, it would be in the county's best interest to continue the existing contract through the third and final phase of the interurban trail project at a cost not to exceed $39,331. Fiscal note: Jefferson County has approved budget carryover. This project will be funded through carryover funds in the Parks Department and other contingency budget as needed, and donations from the Oconomowoc Rotary Club. I move for adoption of this resolution.
Second.
Second by Mr. Christensen. I saw his hand up. Questions? Discussion? Supervisor Paulson?
Seeing as how this wasn't a competitive bid process, what was the cost on the first 2 phases?
I mean, the engineering costs?
Of the engineering or construction?
Engineering costs, I believe he's referring to. Or feasibility. Yes, feasibility study, exactly.
I don't have that. I think that was done originally in 2011 or 2012.
Was it? Phase 2 engineering. Yeah. About $250,000, sir.
That was engineering, though.
That was, so engineering, pull back for phase 2, that was a complete construction that had to be done for the TAP grant, which is a different level requirement. So that was competitively bid through an RFQ process.
It was that portion of it was $195,967.
Any other questions? Supervisor Renard?
I don't have a question, but just a comment. This trail project has been in the works, as has been said, for a long, long time. And it's gone through different phases where it's kind of lingered and then the speed is picked up. But I'm very happy to see it moving forward, or plans to make it move forward. On tonight's agenda, the trail goes across the entire width, I guess you'd call it, of the town of Ixonia. And I think it's going to be a tremendous benefit to people in that community up there in the northeastern part of the county, where there are really precious few county recreational resources at the moment. There's just 2 very, very tiny county parks up there, Kano Park and my new favorite park, Wayside Park. Don't make fun of Wayside Park anymore. So this whole project, and we often don't talk about this, but when it's finished, you're going to be able to ride your bike from Watertown to Lake Michigan. that is why our friends in Waukesha County are so enthusiastic about supporting it. They realize the value of this to their citizens, and I hope that in the future, the support for this project by this board continues to be high, because I think it's just a wonderful recreational opportunity in a place that maybe needs some. And then we will be part of this network of beautiful trail projects where we won't be the missing link anymore in a network of fabulous trails throughout Wisconsin. So I hope you're going to support it tonight. The vote on this should be unanimous. And the support for it, I hope, will continue well into the future until it's finished.
Any other questions, comments? Do a roll call vote? Oh, Supervisor Smith.
A bike path that doesn't have an end or completion isn't really a bike path. It's a bike path to nowhere. So, I hope there's support for this.
Yeah, this will be a roll call vote.
Supervisor David,
Yes.
Supervisor Roberts,
Yes.
we have 28 yes, 2 no, 0 absent.
It passes, which takes us to item 16, Planning and Zoning Committee, approve of petition. Supervisor Jacob.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I will read the report first. To the honorable members of the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors, the Jefferson County Planning and Zoning Committee, having considered petitions to amend the official zoning map of Jefferson County, filed for public hearing held on February 17, 2022, as required by law pursuant to Wisconsin statutes. Notice thereof having been given and been duly advised the wishes of the town boards and persons in the affected area, hereby makes the following recommendations. Approval of petitions as listed, dated this 28th day of February 2022, Wayne Paulson, Secretary. And move on to the ordinance number 2021-19, amending the official zoning map. Whereas Jefferson County Board of Supervisors has heretofore been petitioned to amend the official zoning map of Jefferson County, and whereas petitions as listed were referred to Jefferson County Planning and Zoning Committee for public hearing on February 17, 2022, whereas proposed amendments have been given due consideration by the Board of Supervisors in open session, now therefore be it ordained that Jefferson County Board of Supervisors does amend the Jefferson County zoning map of Jefferson County as follows. As listed, I move for adoption of this ordinance.
Questions, discussion? Supervisor Kennard?
I would abstain for potential conflict of interest.
Duly noted. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the ordinance passes. Takes us to public comment of a general nature. I believe we have anybody here today.
Mr. Chair?
Yes. Supervisor Jones.
Yes. With Mr. Waymeyer's help, I'd like to congratulate Mark DeVries and his staff for once again winning an award for excellence. I see that Mark just walked out, and I texted him quick not to leave, but we'll tell him that we appreciate everything he did. Mr. Waymeyer, can you fill in the name of the award, et cetera?
Yes, it's Excellence in Finance Reporting. It used to be known as the CAFR Award, but basically what it is every year when we do our big audit, it is reviewed by peers throughout the country, and it determines if we meet the requirements for best practices of how we show transparency of how our finances are administered. It includes all the testing requirements, the lovely management discussion analysis, etc. I know we will have a quiz on that all later for you all, but with that all being said, it's a standard that we started about 7-8 years ago to get to the point to show what we provide to you all on a monthly basis is followed up on, and it's truly the picture of where we're at as a financial picture for Jefferson County. It's a lot of extra work. I think there's maybe 12 counties in the state that do it. I had to double check that number. So there's not a lot of counties who meet that requirement. And so again, it's something to be really proud of between that and the budget award we put together, that we meet those expectations from a professional standpoint and a transparency standpoint.
Thank you. With that, there's announcements. I want to just mention that we have a special board meeting on April 4th. It's going to be a very limited agenda, but important. And then, of course, County Board orientation at 6 p.m. on April 12th. And then the organizational meeting, please note, on April 19th, it's at 4 p.m. Please note that. We want to leave enough time to get our organizational setup done that evening, plus business. Supervisor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I apologize. I'm not sure if this should have been public comment or announcements, but we have a unique opportunity in Jefferson County to offer a pipeline security program. It's being hosted or funded through the Federal Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, PHMSA, and the U.S. Department of Transportation in conjunction with the Center for Rural Development. It's being offered to rural communities at no charge, and so far it's been very well received throughout the U.S. It's designed to bring together law enforcement and fire service professionals, oil and gas line company representatives, local emergency planners, public works professionals, and others. The course description reads, "The intent is to ensure that the nation's emergency responders are able to work seamlessly with private industry and the various federal agencies that would respond to an attack, on the nation's pipeline system." It's being held, I understand, on Saturday, March 26th, 8 o'clock, and it's an 8-hour course. People that are interested, please RSVP to Donna Holcomb. Email her, or if questions about the training, please call her, the Emergency Management Director, at 920-674-7450. I'm excited about this opportunity, and I think it's a really important thing for us to take advantage of. Thank you.
Duly noted. Supervisor Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to bring everybody's attention to the Parks Department is seeking volunteers and has 2 sessions where they're discussing park system volunteer opportunities and getting input from the public. There was one tonight just before this meeting. There will be another one on March 22nd at 5 p.m., and I believe that's also at the Extension. And it was well attended tonight. I think there was like 40 people there. So if anybody wants to come to that or has anybody in their district that would be a good volunteer, we'd sure like to see them.
Thank you, Mr. Christensen. And Supervisor Renard.
Mr. Waymire? Are we okay? Okay. You heard tonight about the maps that are being used by the Public Service Commission to determine who gets grant funding for the broadband grant program. So we know, and we can send them to you, that the maps for Jefferson County are showing a greatly exaggerated version of the speeds that are available to our residents. So in an effort to bring some reality to these maps, we need your help. We're going to ask you to help us document actual real live internet speeds at your homes. So tomorrow, I think, as early as tomorrow, yes, we're going to be sending out to everybody on this board an email with a link to a speed test. It takes like not even a minute. It's like, I don't know, I did it a couple of times this afternoon. And then we're going to ask you, well, it's a speed test. You click a button and it'll show you, like on a speedometer, what your download speeds are and what your upload speed is. Then we're going to ask you just to reply to the email and tell us what your result is. Tell us, your name, your address, who your internet provider is, and the speed test results. This is going to help us refute these really bogus maps that seem to indicate that everybody in Jefferson County is getting like 100 megabits per second download. This is just not happening. We know that. But we just want to be able to document it a little bit. It's not a scientific survey, but it's something for us to show that we know these maps are not very accurate. And we're the perfect group to do it because we, by design, represent all areas of Jefferson County, cities, and urban areas. So this is kind of important to us and our application, which is due a week from tomorrow. So if we send it out to you guys tomorrow, if you could do this speed test, honestly, it takes less than a minute, and send it back before Friday, it would greatly help our application, we think. We're going to put those speeds on a map that can be used side by side with the fantasy map that the PSC is using right now. So please help us out in this regard. It really will be a benefit to us and our application as they're reviewing it. And if you have any questions, I think Tammy would maybe be able to answer them in Ben's office.
Thank you, Supervisor Renard. Supervisor Paulson, you've told me many times when we've been in zoning how bad your internet is down there. That it's a little bit faster maybe than the Pony Express. So please include yourself.
And Greg David, too.
Greg David, too. He's had some issues, I know that. All right. With any other announcements?
The only other announcement is that
Yes.
the Sheriff's Department put together a going away cake before we added another meeting in honor of all the Elkhorn supervisors. So we're going to do a little bit more the next meeting, but please help eat the cake that they properly prepared for you all tonight. So thank you.
It's got a file in it. With that, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned.
Please do it. I just found it interesting.
Tonight they do.
Input from anybody else.